We did good with that.
Okay, item 9. We have some potential dates for our annual board governance session, and we need to see if among us, and unfortunately Mr. Otidy isn't here, but we may have to just work with what we've got, if any of those dates can work for all of us.
And it's if you notice, generally around this time, I do have a conversation with CSBA consultant, Ms. Rivera, and she's able to give me, 3 or 4 Saturdays. Well, she contacted me like a week and a half ago and said, Mr. Vidalis, you haven't contacted me, and I only have 1 Saturday in the spring to work with you. And so we talked about different other possibilities, and so we have here, it could be 1 Friday. She can do a whole day on a Friday on the 6th of February. She can do a Saturday, March 7th. She also says that sometimes she does in some districts 2 evenings. So it would be like a 6 to 8:30 or 6 to 9, 2 evenings, Thursday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and a Wednesday and a Thursday.
I personally
Be hard.
prefer to have it a Saturday.
Yeah.
I would go, and
Sure.
at this point, I'm completely able to carve out that Saturday since I'm not planning that far in advance.
You said March 8th,
March 7th.
7th. That's a
It's
Friday.
Saturday, March
Saturday.
7th.
March 7th is a Friday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
March 7th?
Yeah.
Got the right year going there?
No,
Yes,
did you
March
look at the
7th.
calendar?
He's actually looking at a calendar. What a concept. Where's my calendar?
What concept?
I have one somewhere.
I thought I looked at the calendar
Actually,
too.
February and March are Saturdays.
There we go.
March 8th. Oh. Yeah. All right. Let me see.
Yes.
Yeah, March 7th.
All right. So March.
Valentine's Day is on a Saturday. So
You
so
know.
March and February are the same. So.
Oh, I was gonna say, wait a minute, I was gonna say, that's February. March.
All
There
right.
we go. That's the,
I can just say that I'm not positive I can be there, because that's usually the weekend that
I'm still
we go
in
to visit
2000.
my daughter-in-law for her birthday, so I'm not sure that I'll be in town.
March 7th.
Should
I'm available.
the other possibility is that we can work with another CSBA consultant that might have other dates available.
Why don't you just try that? I like her a lot, but
Okay.
it seems it's limited for what we're able to do here.
Okay. So I
No
can
group think.
feeling
contact.
that the 7th is.
For me, it's
Should
not
we
a good
pencil
day.
in the 7th?
Well, that's the Friday?
Or
I
that's
was gonna say,
absolutely
I
not
have
possible?
this feeling like we might want to
Because the
pencil
Friday
in
is
so we don't
available.
lose
Nobody's
everything.
good on Friday?
Is that an absolutely, if Mrs. Brizuela knows for sure that she's not able to attend that,
Then that's problematic.
then that's problematic, because we do want to try to get as many.
Yeah, 'cause I
Right.
would like to be there.
It's different to not be able to make it when you find out something a week or 2 before,
Right.
than to know this far in advance so you
Right.
cannot.
Yeah, there's a way on it.
Give us the option, and then if I have to, I'll try to see if I can convince them to change it.
Okay, this is what
But
I'll
we
do.
usually
March 7th.
plan a
If you
family
guys-
event.
March 7th.
If you're good with this, I will pencil in March 7th, but I will also
Do March
request
7th.
additional dates.
All right.
So just so we don't lose March 7th, and at the next board meeting, we'll include those additional dates and March 7th.
Okay.
So we can look,
Can
so
look at-
so we can look
right.
at them all.
That sounds good.
That'll give me some time to make sure
Right, see what you can.
what date we,
Yeah.
but we usually always, that's the weekend.
Yeah,
we
because I
try.
really don't see either taking a work day off for those who
No.
work, or trying to get through that kind of work in
On
an
a
evening
Friday?
at the
Well,
end.
it has to be
Two
two
evenings in a
evenings.
row, too. Yeah, it's just too hard to do that when you're tired at the end of the day.
Besides, that Thursday, I couldn't make it anyway,
Oh, that's right.
that Thursday night.
I think
So,
somebody has a birthday that day.
well, no, that's not,
Around
no,
that day.
I don't mind if my birthday's on a day, it's just another commitment on
Happens.
that.
Yeah, it happens.
That particular.
Yeah. That I can't get out of.
I haven't got anything straightened out for that far through the year.
I mean, yeah, that's all I was still thinking
Okay,
of.
so then at
Wrong
this
day.
point, it is marked for action, so if you guys want to just make a motion to preliminary reserve March 7th,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then come back with,
Alternate dates.
with some alternate dates with a different consultant.
And I think, does everyone agree that it probably should be a Saturday
Yes.
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 Yeah, I think that's.
or a Sunday?
I like Friday personally, but
Friday.
the general consensus is Saturday, that works.
Friday
I'm
is
open.
probably more
Good
problematic for
boardsmanship.
Tidy as well, since he's also got regular employment. I can usually get time off when I need it, but then, of course, that's time off from my income as well, so I prefer Saturday.
Okay, So we'll come back with some alternate
Yeah.
dates in addition to this, so you guys can make that motion.
Okay, somebody want to?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we pencil in or temporarily put in March the 7th, Saturday, and to bring back additional dates on Saturdays with another consultant and put it back on the agenda.
Perfect.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Now we go to number 8, all right?
It's down here, business and financial procedures, number 8, our budget update. Boy,
Jot things down.
yeah, that's nice to have.
City.
Well, I read all over the margins, but then I can't read it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good evening. Well, it's been several months since we passed the budget, and also since the state's passed the budget, and so this is my opportunity to tell you what's the difference between the budget that you adopted and how it's being revised to meet the state budget. So Prop 98 came in just under $61 billion. And the most important parts that are really affecting us is the funding of the LCFF target gap funding there. Down here, where there is $4.7 billion to buy down inter-year deferrals. So that's where we are supposed to get our money within a specific year, like the 14-15 year. And instead of getting it within that year, some funds have been held over to the following year. So in other words, they're holding back our paycheck until a different year. And also this potential restriction on reserves. So just to go back to, I'll be talking about the funding of the gap later on, because that's a major part of our budget. But to go back to the buy down of the inter-year deferrals, this buys down the $4.7 billion for K-12, buys down almost all of it. We will still have about $1 million, well, I'm sorry, almost $1 billion more to buy down. And there is language in the state budget that should the revenues come in higher than they are projected now, the governor went with the DOF, Department of Finance's estimates of revenues instead of the legislative analyst department's numbers, which was about a $2.2 billion difference. If the funds come in higher in January, then there's trigger language in the budget to use those funds to pay off those inter-year deferrals, so that we would have all of the inter-year deferrals would be bought back, and we'd at least be getting our money within the year that we're supposed to be getting it. Part of the state budget is that the legislative did vote and will be putting Prop 2 on the November ballot, and if it's passed by voters, part of that will include a maximum reserve that school districts can have. And for Jefferson, that reserve would be 6%. The reserve goes between 4 and 10%, depending on the size of the district. For Jefferson, it would be 6%. I want to let you know what that means. That means our reserve would be capped at $2.5 million. 1 month's payroll is $4 million. Okay, so that is basically covers a little bit more than 1/2 of 1 month. And of course, we don't get our paycheck from the state in nice equal payments. It gets broken up. It is going back, some of it is going back to equal payments, but because we also don't get property taxes, we end up getting money from the EPA Education Protection Account. Yes.
Okay. I might be asking a lot of questions because numbers,
Okay,
I'm allergic
that's
to
fine.
them. So our total budget is $60.9
No,
billion. That's correct?
that's a state budget.
Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah, that's the state
I'm just
budget. And-
kinda- I was like 40.
And for education. Actually, that's the state budget for education. So Prop 98, so that you understand it a little bit better, is the minimum guarantee that school districts in California have to be funded. And so unless they throw it out the window like they've done a few times where they've not given us the funds, then it's a calculation. And this year's calculation, they determined that school districts, K through 14, will get $61 billion. And how they decide to give that money out is kind of like here, that's just a new portion of some of the monies. So they are funding all of these different things for school districts.
Okay.
And
Now
it
with that,
equals $61 billion.
and our budget is,
Our budget is about
43.
50 million,
50 million?
yeah, for 1 year,
Oh, 50? Oh.
approximately. That's just a kind of round number. So anyway, I did want to tell you that that whole reserve thing, it's a big deal. And one of the things is that you'll see that we have higher reserves. And one of the things that we've been doing is we know that we have what's called post-employment benefits. And that's when our current employees in the future, when they retire, if they've been with the district for 10 years or more, and current retired employees who are already there, who are receiving these medical benefits. As you know, they're very expensive medical benefits. Every 2 years, we have to have an actuarial report, and that report tells us what our current liability for the future years is for medical benefits, what they estimate us to have to pay out. And ours is approximately $16 million. So in the past, we've just had it kind of as part of our reserve, and we've not separated it out. We've just said, well, we know we have those funds. We can fund this liability from year to year as it comes along. But what we found now is we really have to commit those funds. We have to say we need to commit funds to pay those future liabilities. If we commit those funds, then they won't be subject to that 6%. Those funds can, if the economy collapsed again and we needed those funds, the board would have the right to uncommit those funds. But in the meantime, and that will be coming at the next board meeting, we'll be asking you to vote on that.
Well, that actually covers a question that I had, which
good.
was, if we are forced to deal with this 6% reserve, what were we going to do with
How are we going to handle it?
So is that one of the main things that we're going to do, is try to mandate the funds for this, for the post-employment? And would that be like the main?
Yes,
all
and
right.
what we're recommending is just putting half of the funds away now, and then like the other half, or as much as we can, because we have to see how that's going to affect our cash flow. And also that 6% reserve, we're really talking probably multiple years before that actually comes into effect.
All right.
Because they first have to pay down all the funds that they owe to schools, and then they also have to, there's a lot of things.
right, so-
Capital gains have to be over 8% of the income. There's a lot of different things, but they kind of estimate. What they're saying now is they're saying, oh, don't have a knee-jerk reaction. Don't do anything. Don't go spend all this money because you're afraid you're not going to be able to hold on to it. But really, this is just committing the funds for the purpose that we just simply haven't committed them before.
Is the intent, are they assuming that we'll have a healthier economy, and so that's why we would need less reserve, or what is the
I
intent?
think as I understand it, the intent on this is that the state is going to be establishing a rainy day fund,
All right.
and that they would tap into that rainy day fund to help districts out in years
I got you.
that the contribution is not what it needed to be.
Right.
I think there's a variety of skepticism on that, mostly based on experience.
Right.
Because the state didn't even fund Proposition 98 contributions,
That's true.
or funded them in ways like with these deferrals. So we were getting a third of our income during the summer months, but we'd spent 100% of our expenses by June 30th. So it was our reserves for our district and other districts that helped with that, with being able to pay you know, we do not give our employees an IOU.
Right.
We give them, you know, we give them a check that can be cashed that day. With that kind of a low reserve, it can become problematic, and rest assured that, you know, we will attempt to
Have
always be a
remedies.
solvent district, and be able to make sure that our checks are good when we
Right.
issue them. So,
And do remember that there was, with all the reserves that we have, there was one day that we ended up having negative cash. All those reserves, we still had negative cash. So if we had, you know, like a fraction of those reserves, it would be more than one day of negative cash. And of course, our ability to borrow funds would also diminish because we wouldn't look very healthy. Additionally, that rainy day fund, you'd have to have 2 consecutive years of loss of funds in order for them to draw anything. And then if they drew something and paid you and it caused those, if you had like 2 consecutive years of a drop and the next year went up a tiny amount, that would preclude them from being able to pull the funds out because you had gone up. So there's lots of, we have probably several years to really understand this,
I wanna
if
ask
it
you-
passes.
I thought I was getting called a few minutes ago, but I wanted to ask you, it says that it's going to be voted on November 14th this year?
November 2014, this year.
This year.
It's
gonna
on the
be on
ballot.
the ballot for all the voters to vote
Yes.
whether or not,
Let me see, August, September, October, 3 months, in less than 2.5 months from now.
We need to get out there,
so,
advocate.
yeah. Unfortunately, it probably sounds a lot, it sounds like a lot to some people if they're not sure
Right.
how it works.
Well, and on the ballot, it's not going to look like, it's not going to say, oh, school districts can only save 6%, have a 6% reserve. It's going to say that California is going to increase this stabilization fund that they have. We're going to put more money away, and this is going to be a small part of it off to the side. But who isn't going to say, yeah, California should have some money saved off to the side? You know, I mean, of course it should, but this is part of it that is like,
That we need to.
in my 18 years, to me, it makes the least sense of anything I have ever heard in this period of time.
Well,
Mistake.
on those kind of things on the ballot,
That's
there's going to be a
correct.
for and against.
There will
Going to
be.
be someone doing against?
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, and probably against the 5% of the bill, right? And the other 95% is something that people might want.
Yeah.
Second question I have is this a measure on the ballot that will increase taxes?
No,
Because generally speaking,
Good.
no, it's
there
not
either
supposed
is
to.
or it isn't.
It's supposed to take from the taxes and put it away.
Because that's why people vote against it.
Right.
Which
Just a
don't-
different
No,
way
it's
to
not.
Yeah,
use the
so we
taxes.
just tell
this
them
time.
the
Yeah,
All
a
right.
certain portion of what the state collects in taxes has to be
Has
put
to go
aside.
there.
So that will,
So,
So maybe they'll all vote in our favor.
it's
It's
interesting.
it's a difficult thing because it does have a very attractive component to it, which is what school districts have been doing and families have been doing, which is when you have more, you save it for when you have less. And that's what we're asking the states to do with this proposition, but at the same time, they have this thing in there for school districts, and there's a lot of organizations out there who are both for and against this that will be making their views known
All right.
by November.
Is there any possibility of separating or taking that part out, the 6%?
now.
not at this
think
point.
that's already been
They
negotiated
did
a
try
long time
to,
ago.
in info bulletin I sent, there is the Assembly's trying to put a bill together,
All right.
but they had 2 weeks to be able to get it on the ballot. I think there's 1
Right.
week left in it.
Crunch time.
It's not going to make it. So they may have to start working on it after if it passes, and
Right.
yeah.
All right, that's true.
It is deeply ironic that having passed the local control funding
Yeah.
formula, they turn around and then ask us to turn our control of
Back
our
over.
reserves over to
Back
the
them.
state.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not sure
I
that
think you
our
grasp
assembly
the
is-
situation.
Yes,
It sounds like it.
we get it.
So if I may.
Please continue.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is what you saw when you adopted the budget. And these are the assumptions. Now, I'm not including all the assumptions of all the new programs that we've added. And these are the yearly assumptions. Most of them are yearly assumptions that we go through. So in other words, the COLA in the current year and the out years, the LCAP funding, or the LCFF funding, that's the actual funding for this year, the 28.05%. And then the out years, we did the conservative funding. And I will show you some slides with the conservative funding as we have it, with the more liberal, generous funding, how it would look with that. So, but the budget was built on the 28.05, and the multi-year projection was built on these conservative numbers here. Then our ADA is flat. This is our supplemental and grant formula, the unduplicated count, 73.68 we're using. And I did want to also mention that campaign for that free and reduced. The idea here, as Dr. Douglas said, is to identify all the students who would qualify for these and who therefore also qualify for additional services. If we can identify students that qualify for additional services that we didn't, if we can identify them by the CBEDS date and get them on our CalWorks, we get the money for them. If we identify them the day after, if they miss the boat by one day, we don't get that extra supplemental and concentration grant funds for those students. So a 1% increase, so that means 63 additional students in the district, or 4.5 per school site, would, after a 3-year average, if we were getting our full funds, would be an additional $318,000 for us on a yearly basis. That's how important it is. So 63 students that would maybe be identified a week later, 2 weeks later, if they got identified in time, would help us bring funds in to be able to support services that our students need. Okay, and then, as you know, we had completed negotiations. Those are all in the adopted budget. And here's the STRS and the PERS increase in the out years that was included in the adopted budget. So our adopted budget looked like this. Okay, this is the expenditures over, so this is like deficit spending. So you have 2.5, 2.5, 2.5
Strategic spending of our reserves.
million a year, and that looks really bad, but it's not. We talked about strategically using reserves to support the district, and that as we got the gap funding came to us, because they're trying to fund large amounts, that we would be able to pay for these in out years without deficit spending, that we would come to a point where we could sustain ourselves. And the reason why it looks so negative is because we are using this conservative 7.8, 8.4, 8.4, instead of the state's higher numbers. But here we use the high number. Yes, for right here, for this year, yes, there will be deficit spending. And if the state doesn't provide us much, then yes, we would. But our reserves can handle that for a period of time. So this is what our cash looked like. And of course, that looks scary, but like I said, this is a conservative thing. I do not believe that this is what's going to happen. So then the changes to the state budget that affect our budget. And there's just a few things, and then when we get into the first interim, we'll have lots of different changes. There'll be changes because we know we got positions filled, or carryover got given out and such. But right now, this revision is just to reflect the state's budget. So these are the things that have changes. The other stuff really didn't have changes. So the the LCFF funding, it went from 28.05% to 29.56%. So we got increased revenues this year. The other ones went up as well. I'll show you later, but we're still using a conservative one. School Services of California gives us numbers that they feel are conservative that we can use, and so we use them. And this one we make up ourselves as 8% because they don't go out that far, but we do. And then they're going to pay for some of the mandated costs, reimbursements from prior years, $66 per ADA. The district will get about $405,000. That's a one-time amount for prior years, so that's going to be reflected in the revised budget for this year, and then the following years it will disappear. And then, so these are revenue changes. Expenditure changes, well, the STRS, where it was 9.5%, it's now been dropped to 8.88%. And each of these years, this year and this year, have also dropped slightly, not a whole lot, but slightly. And this year went up by that 0.3%, and then after that, it's still going to go up. This is still going to go up to 19.1% by 2020-21. And PERS will go up to 20.4% by 2020-21. So those are things we need to keep on our radar and recognize it's coming.
Ms. Kessler, so why are we getting the 405,000? Is that because we had a higher ADA than?
No, they're funding it that way. It's for prior mandated costs.
All right.
And the way the governor has decided to fund it is to give everybody this money. So even the ones that didn't file for the reimbursements are going to get it as well.
All right.
So
And it's
it's
at
kind of,
that
we did
rate.
all the work we're supposed to do, and we're going to get the money, but the people who didn't do the work are going to get the money as
Too.
well. So this is what the revised budget is going to look like for now. And again, I'll come back at first interim with a different revision. But in the first interim, the revisions are going to be mostly with expenditures as opposed to revenues. So we were at 2 million, and we were at 2.5 million here. As you see, it improves us. Instead of 2, we're at just 1.1. And instead of 2.5, we're closer to 2 in these of deficit spending. Reserves are still good. Here they are down here. See, we are able to sustain that. But as I said, I do feel that we are conservative, and these aren't going to be as bad as they look. So that means this will be better. So this slope is a little bit gentler than the other slope that went kind of down like that. Okay. So, and again, this is conservative, but this is the revised budget. So then here's what's not used. We didn't use this, but I want to show it to you. The only difference here is instead of having the 7.8, 8.4, 8%, we're putting what the state is saying they feel that they're going to be able to fund. So almost 21%, 25%, and this is our makeup 20%, because we're just, like I said, they don't give us that number. And so if that happened, then what we would have instead is deficit spending this year still, because this year is still the same. Next year, only deficit spending by 400,000. And then being able to have a surplus, 1.5 million, 2.5 million. So you see what happens to our reserves here, and look at our reserves. So now, instead of going down, we're going like this. This is all speculation. So we have to see what happens, all right? But this is a good opportunity to point out what the cost of the unfunded STRS is. So I said it was 19.1% when we have to pay all of STRS. And the STRS, the gradual increase of STRS, is included in our budget. But we are in 2021 going to have to pay the 19.1%. I just want you to see how that affects the cost to the district. So if those out years and the multi-year projection for these 3 years, if we were paying that 19.1% now, this would be the additional cost that's not in the budget. That's not in the multi-year projection. So for those 3-year periods, it's $5.5 million. I want to show this because I want you to see that, you know, what we have to do to sustain ourselves. Now look, this is with the generous funding from the state, but this is if we were already paying that 19.1%. And the important part here to see is that it's not like we're getting a huge amount. On the other hand, you can see that we're able to sustain ourselves. We're able, with the way we're budgeting now, we're able to continue with the programs that we have, with the salaries that we have. And we are not in terribly dire straits, but the way the other one made it look like. And that swoop up here, mind you, this is because of the high LCFF gap funding. Eventually that gap is going to be gone. And when that gap is going to be gone, our funding is going to increase by very small amounts. It'll increase more like by COLA probably. And it's not even statutory that it increases by COLA, but they probably would increase it by COLA if they had the funds. So that's what I wanted to show you with this because it makes it look like it's like really great, and it is really great if we get those funds. But we have to consider that there are huge liabilities that we're not paying now that we will have to pay in the future. That's it.
Is there a reason why, if the state is saying they're going to fund the gap at 24%, say, is there a reason why we're going as low as 7 and not something like more in between?
It's just to be conservative. It's to make us really look and think
Right,
about that. And also, it's only in the multi-year projection.
right,
You know, when we meet with our bargaining units, we're meeting with the numbers that the governor is proposing for the next year, and that's the year we're talking about. And so we have an idea, but this is just so that we can see if the state didn't give us the funds, will we be able to sustain commitments that we are in now with our staff, with the programs that we have? What commitments do we have, and can we sustain those, even if we just got a small amount, even if we just got basically what a COLA would be instead of gap funding?
all right, thanks.
Board questions? I have a speaker card on this. Ms. Garrett?
Thank you. Melinda Dart, AFT 3267. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the possibility of a reserve cap. You just heard about it with a certain slant. I mean, even though these are numbers, they do have a spin on them, I find. And so there's another outlook on this, which is that when we were in dire straits financially across the state, districts every year predicted, disaster, including our district, and we cut programs. We, every year cut down as far as we could, and yet the reserves grew. And the reserves grew because, we were always on the edge of disaster, but it never quite happened. And that was a good thing, but the reserves did grow. And I think you remember a period of time when teachers were coming up here and saying, look how big the reserves are, and let's spend the reserves on programs and on employees. So, and it is true that school services is very fiscally conservative, and they always recommend, union folks are invited to attend their workshops too, and I sometimes go. I didn't go this year, but I know that they always recommend far, above the legally mandated reserve. They're big believers in reserves. And I understand why districts would feel like they need to have big reserves, especially because everybody is kind of in post-traumatic stress after 2008 and nobody's really recovered. But the rationale here is not so much that the state wants to control everyone's reserve or get it back or anything like that. The state wants, politicians heard from people that districts were sitting on large reserves, and even after the economy began to recover, districts were scared to spend money. You may remember something about that yourselves. And I understand that. I understand why a district would be scared to spend money after what we went through. But when you have reserves that are sitting there and programs that were slashed, and in some districts much even worse than ours, right? Larger class sizes, deeper cuts even than we had. When you see that, people start to say, wait a minute, let's spend the money on students. We are not banks, right? And so that became the impetus that sort of went into this idea that districts should not be sitting on large amounts of reserves. So I know there's many ways of looking at that, but that is, that's the other slant to it. I just had to put that out there. And as far as STRS, I just want to put out there to everyone, including the public, that teachers pay into their own retirement as well. So it's not just the district bearing that burden. And I wanted to say about the ADA and the need to have everyone fill out the free and reduced lunch form this year. We should really enlist teachers' help on that because teachers can make that happen. Back to school night is coming. Every teacher should have extra forms in their room. Every teacher should get a message from the principal or the union rep or both. We can help spread the word that we really need to push that. Because we were calculating madly over here, Elaine was, and we figured out that just 4 extra students per school would do it. So, so please enlist our help, and we'll put the word out too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
That may be related to laws of unintended consequences, but, okay. Thank you, Ms. Kessler. Oh, whoops, we missed a circle here. Almost missed one. Brings us to Section 4, Certificated Personnel. Item 1, we have certificated retirement. A retirement request from Erin Booya Redding, 4th grade teacher at MP Brown. And she has been with us since 1999. That would be
I'd like
15
to make
years.
a motion then that we approve the retirement request for Erin Booya Redding, 4th grade teacher at Pauline Brown School, effective June the 7th, 2014, and that an appropriate resolution be prepared to honor her for her years of service to the district.
There's also another one here. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I was just taking a deep breath. Okay. I'll also include approval of the retirement request from Vincent Hines, school psychologist, effective June 13th, 2014. Period.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Or I lose my voice.
Reluctantly.
I think I'm not going to be
Have
able
a
to
great time
speak.
in retirement, folks.
Time to have, and that's a good one.
Okay. Section 5, classified personnel. We have resignation requests, a list of them here, and we need a motion to approve resignations.
Motion to approve resignations of classified employees.
We
And-
to read off the names there.
Patricia Ralph of JFK, special circumstance aide. Erin Mouton, special circumstance aide, MP Brown. Wei Ping Chung, aka Vicky, payroll clerk. Ivania Andrade, EDC program assistant, JFK. Shauna Kimball, PEA, JFK. Michael Hendricks, special circumstance aide, Fernando Revere. Lenny Gargasin, school secretary, TRP.
And we
Second.
have Letter
Oh,
of
yeah, there's
commendation.
letters of commendation for Michael Hendricks and Lenny
Oh, yeah.
Gargasan.
Let's see that part.
Okay. It's a long list. Okay. Do we have?
Well,
Second.
yeah, I have a question. I'll second, but I have a question first. Why are some of these retirements listed as during the summer when they don't work in the summer?
Resignations?
Well, I think when you resign, don't you resign the last day you work?
Well, if they're not I believe these are all resignations, and so it does count as your last workday.
But it says effective July 15th, July 30th, August 4th. I'm just asking. Normally speaking, you retire the end of your work time because you're not working during the summer. If you are working during the summer, that means they're
Get
getting
more pay,
benefits,
yeah.
if they happen to get benefits. So I'm just asking the question because I've never seen it like this.
So some of these are 12-month employees or 11-month employees.
Well, the payroll clerk is.
Yes. and
But not-
Ms. Gregason, she's an 11-month employee, so she did work a couple of weeks at the beginning of the year. The other ones, I believe, is just when we received their notice of
I understand
resignation.
that,
So
but-
that's why
That's what I was
that date is effective.
But generally speaking, and it could make a difference if it's overlooked in the office, but once they resign is when you cut off their benefits.
If they receive the letters at a certain date, are you saying that we need the administration to backdate the resignation date?
Their employment,
last day?
your last day of employment.
They do not receive benefits over the summer months if they're 10-month employees.
What do you mean they don't get benefits?
They
They
are
get
10
benefits 12 every month regardless.
They're 10-month employees, and they,
The money is
Don't they-
spread
don't
out.
Well, if they're
No, they are covered. They are covered all for 12 months.
Can we hear from Ms. Hopkins, please?
go ahead.
I know it works.
it depends on how they get their pay done, if they are paid over 12 months or they're paid over 10 months, but their benefits do cover them through the summer.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
That's why the effective date is.
Right.
So
So
if
the
the
effective date is
effective
probably the date that they gave us.
But the effective date, if they're covered by insurance, means that they were able to use the insurance when they weren't working.
I
Just
guess so.
bringing up a point that it used to be a real, I mean, it was a stickler for years, and suddenly I think it's being overlooked. I'm bringing it to your attention,
We
that's
will
all,
look into that.
okay? Because if they did get services and they resigned the end of their work term, which would have been June, even if they gave you a letter, they weren't
Is there a
working.
second?
Yeah, she did second it.
I mean, I've seen it where they've always gone back and said, your employment is of that date. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, if this
Find
is
out.
happening, we better not let it continue. It's money out of our pockets, not our pockets, the district pockets.
But wouldn't it be too late to get the money back?
I'm not saying that. I'm not
Just to
saying
make
that.
sure that it's all done.
I'm saying that
I
we should
understand.
do it correctly if it's, otherwise, then
Right, right.
nobody will resign at the end of June. You know, or when school's out, nobody will submit the letter of resignation
It's
until
possible.
September.
Yeah, that's true. It's possible.
Okay, let's face it,
I don't know what people would do, but that's a
Well-
possibility.
this may have been an oversight that you looked at the date of the letter,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's the end of their term of working.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not working during the summer, their
Then that's-
assignment ended in the end of the school year. Okay? Okay, just something to look at,
Yeah, no.
because it could be a big cost factor down the road.
Well, I was also just trying to figure out how that works with ones whose pay is 10-month pay.
what was that?
For 12 months.
Julie, what was that?
She's asking her a question.
I was in a meeting, I thought we were trying to hear from each person, so I just want to make sure with that.
So
Anyway,
do we have a second?
We do.
I second the motion, but I did want to bring to the
Yes,
attention
okay. It
that
has
we
been
look
brought-
at this.
It has been brought to
okay?
everybody's attention quite adequately. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Now I'm losing my voice, too. You sure it's not catchy?
No, it's not.
No, I just,
I haven't hugged you yet.
okay. Item 7 is salary recommendations for various management and confidential classified employees. We approved salary schedules for these positions.
You're approving them today.
We are approving them,
We
yeah,
approved
okay.
job
And they would
descriptions.
be effective July 1st, that's, yeah, we approved the job descriptions last spring. So these are results from the 2014 classification study, and go ahead and take a look there at what they are.
Remember, I called Bernie to ask about this, and Bernie, you did tell me, I want to make sure as we vote on this, that the employees are placed on the the closest step to what?
Yes.
So they're not getting a
Yes.
loss in
So
pay?
that last, yeah, I'll read that last sentence. It says, "Employees serving in classifications with a new salary schedule will be placed at a level that's most closely aligned with, but not less than, their current rate of pay." Another thing that I just wanted to clarify for the public is that these are classified staff members that are not part of the CSEA bargaining unit. The CSEA bargaining unit has requested to more formally negotiate any changes to any of their members, and so we have respected that, and we do have a date scheduled next month. Hopefully, should be resolved soon.
All right.
So when that
I
happens,
didn't-
Bernie, does this mean that I think I was absent, but did we adopted the
Job
salary schedule and the, what do you call it?
Job descriptions.
Job descriptions, right, is that correct?
We have not done so for any of the bargaining
That's
units
the bargain.
members, and the salaries.
No, but for these,
For these ones right now,
Yeah.
we're adopting the salary schedule now.
And we did adopt the job description
Yes, this summer.
in
Yeah.
June.
Is that correct, Ms.
Yes.
but we didn't do
We had
any
two
of the job
readings.
specifications for,
For any of the class, any of the bargaining units.
so when their time comes, will theirs be retroactive to the report?
Well, it would need to be negotiated, so we need to see how we negotiate that. My hope is that, yes,
Okay.
that it would be the same.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
hoping that they'll get what they need to do once the report was done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't at that last meeting.
Request to negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
did we make a motion
No,
yet?
we didn't yet have a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we approve the salary recommendations for various management and confidential classified employees as presented. I'm not going to read it all, okay? I'll lose
Second.
my voice.
And we have a second from Mr. Ali. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Winding down.
Okay, that brings us down here to our board policies and ARs. BP 9270, conflict of interest. This is a regular mandated update with, the only change is that we've had a change of title for our curriculum and instruction, who is now a assistant superintendent instead of a director, and so we had to change the name on that.
And I
That's the
think-
only change.
That's the only change.
Yeah, and I think the food service manager has a different wording in their title as well, and I think we included the bond manager to the
Oh, right,
maintenance.
okay.
So there's just a couple, they're basically title changes in the list of employees that need to report.
But the policy did not change.
The policy did not
Titles
change
of
it.
people changed.
Because I looked carefully, I didn't see any.
No, you
I
have to
didn't
look at the very last page, and that's where the red marks are.
see red marks.
Well, if you have the color version.
I don't have a color.
That's where,
Okay, I
it's just the
didn't see
last
red
page,
marks on
that's it.
the,
Okay.
online version
Okay.
either, but-
Yeah, but I was just looking, saying, what's been changed?
Okay.
It's the same, okay.
So, this is very straightforward, and I don't think, I mean, if nobody has any discussion, we can go ahead and do a final approval rather than a first reading and bring it back.